Archies TV Laugh Out Issue 92. Sabrina asks Salem what he's doing up in that tree when it's immediately obvious that it's because a dog is barking at him from the bottom of it. She'd know that because she'd be able to hear it. She uses her magic to rescue him from the tree, and then he wonders why she took away his magic because he couldn't defend himself from that dog. She says she made his magic tail powerless to keep him from abusing his powers. It's confusing that with every Salem story you have to figure out which universe it's in on your own. Surprisingly, she says she'll put a drop of brew on his tail to let him cast one spell to protect him if he gets into a jam. If it's only one, that'll incentivize him to only use it for emergencies, so that should be a good idea. He briefly looks at a dog outside, and we see some panels where he considers abusing someone's beloved dog with magic. Thankfully, neither of that happens, but sadly it's not because he finally realized that he should save his magic for an emergency like I expected. The dog gets caught in a net by the dog catcher, and for no reason, Salem had no collar, so he gets put in the pound too. Why did Salem even consider waiting until the right time to warp home? Why does a normal cat not only have the ability to communicate with him telepathically, but also knows what put to sleep is slang for? The other cats would never see a cat again after that, so how would they know what happened? Surprisingly, Salem somehow feels sorry for his dog Nemesis. So somehow, he decides to free him, instead of just casting a spell that'll warp both of them to Sabrina's house. Sabrina finds Salem on her own, and even she wonders why he didn't escape. She figures out what happened when someone in a blue uniform says that the bars in the dog cage melted. Why is he dressed like that? He almost looked like a cop. Sabrina's proud of him. Unfortunately, the dog is still grateful instead of being scared of him for his magic, so the dog sucks up to him, which grosses him out. In this story, for once Sabrina decides to give Salem magic, and it's justified as being for an emergency only. I don't know why he didn't have a collar. Her family should have known he could get caught by a dog catcher for that. Wouldn't they have walked by pets with collars? I guess they assume they're just for decoration, and they don't watch enough TV to know better because it's a mortal thing. You'd think they would have had collars in the witch realm too. Salem uses his magic to free his dog Nemesis from the cage because even though he'd like to use magic to mess with him, he doesn't want him gone from his life, apparently. It's hard to believe that of a cat. If anything, he would have cast a spell to save them both at once. It was nice of him, and it's a good thing the dog is shown to be grateful to him, but unfortunately, Salem doesn't appreciate the dog's gratitude for good reason. We should have at least seen him get some reward, like being pet or given a treat. Jughead 331. Hilda lectures Sabrina that she shows no respect for the Halloween traditions and customs of their witchcraft profession. Ambrose thankfully feels sorry for Sabrina, and it turns out Sabrina converted their cauldron into a giant corn popper. So, that was clever of her. Couldn't she create a giant corn popper of her own and avoid this? Archie at Riverdale High 94. Sabrina says she hears that she has a new garbage disposal unit, which is self-powered and cordless. Hilda throws garbage into an alligator or crocodile from the window and warns her not to get close to it. She'd cast a spell on it so that it wouldn't bother anyone in the house. I assume she used magic so that it could get nutrition out of the garbage, because it'd burn it for fuel like a robot. It only looks organic. It does make sense that since they can run out of magic, they wouldn't just zap away all of their garbage if they could save the magic like this. Hilda did this because it's easier to throw garbage out the window into this thing than it is to have to bring a trash can to the end of the laneway all the time. Now, of course, what they're not thinking about is, what if the neighbors see, and talk about it with each other? Laugh Comic 380. Sabrina talks to Hilda on her new cordless phone while flying on a broom. It's so charming to me that it's such an old story that she doesn't call it a cell phone, and somehow she thinks it's a good idea to not look where she's going. Go figure, she crashes. But we don't even get to see her impact what she crashed into. So how is that supposed to be funny or cathartic? Archie Giant Series 534. The Music Birds. Sabrina generously feeds some birds outside of her house, and unrealistically she hears a regular bird sniffle as if he's crying like a human would. So that prompts her to want to find out what's wrong and use magic to make him able to tell her that he can't eat because he's in love with a bird who likes him. But while he somehow had a guitar to play while he sang to her, that still bored her because his song was lame, and a tough bird kicked him away. Why did the tough bird have shorts and shoes, and why does he have a hat? This isn't the witch world, this is normal Earth, and she had to use magic just to make me able to talk. This story didn't need to be about birds, because it could have had Sabrina give advice to humans at this point. She advises them to try to impress this girl with punk rock, and casts a spell to turn herself into a bird so she could sing. Then she creates a rock band and sings in it. You'd think the instruments would just scare the birds. So Bernice gets jealous, even though Sabrina is the one singing. And the tough bird just said that the rock group was singing to Montgomery, the guy with the same first name as Mr. Burns. It's satisfying that she refuses to fly away with him and stands up to him. Out of nowhere, Montgomery's forgotten all about Bernice and fallen for Sabrina because she's singing as a bird, when I assumed she wanted to turn herself into a bird just to help him. So the plot could have easily not gone this direction. I thought she was going to make him do the singing and give him new lyrics. Sabrina gets pecked and turned back to normal. Out of nowhere, Bernice is still in the mood to date the bird who was interested in Sabrina instead a second ago. So when he hugs her for caring, she hugs back, and the story ends with them together. That's a relief. I thought she'd hate him for proving that his interest in her is shallow and can easily be overruled by another girl they shouldn't be interested in anyways, because Sabrina's too young for him. But I suppose a bird wouldn't know that. But these birds have human intelligence for some reason. I wish it was explained as witches did it, instead of just making the story annoying. This story is about Sabrina somehow hearing a bird sniffle because he's sad, and finding out that he's sad because a tough guy won't let him be with the girl he has a crush on, who wasn't impressed by his song. So Sabrina thinks that summoning a bird rock group will help, when you'd think it'd just scare birds, or at least be too loud. And she also has no apparent reason to sing in the group as a bird, when Bertrice wouldn't recognize her, so she wouldn't immediately know that the group's singing for her on behalf of Mont. So of course she just gets jealous of the new girl with her old boyfriend. If it was explained that this was Sabrina's plan to guarantee they'd get together even if she didn't appreciate the song, then that'd make her look clever and self-sacrificially good. But instead she seems like she got hurt because she really wanted to sing as a bird for a bird she just met. It was disappointing that he was ready to suddenly crush on Sabrina. And the whole story was annoying because it didn't explain why the birds were so much like humans that they played the guitar and wore clothes when this is a normal, mortal world where people don't know about witchcraft. Archie Giant Series 535. Sabrina says it's fun trying to guess what's inside the Christmas presents and wonders what Ambrose got Hilda. And Hilda says she's got a hunch somehow just because of the green hands and webbed feet poking out of the bottom of the box. You'd think that they wouldn't be able to poke out of it because that'd make them visible. And if it was actually a living creature, he wouldn't be so cruel as to trap it in a box. The box also has fire coming out of it too. It's a creative gift compared to a gift I'd expect for her. Archie Giant Series 536. Hilda says she'll buy a Christmas tree, and she and Sabrina fly away on it in front of the guy. That was already done in Little Sabrina, and that was a fully fledged story. Once again, all there is to say is the usual assumption that they assume nobody will believe him. Betty Me 137. Ambrose points out a bumper on Sabrina's broom and wonders if he's seeing things. It's a car bumper that says, "I love hexing." But she's much more proud of doing good with magic than hexing. She does hex people sometimes, but she wouldn't want to advertise that on a bumper sticker. If Ambrose is surprised at this must be a really recent concept. But mortals have had cars for decades before this. Everything's Archie 109. Sabrina says Hilda's jealous of an astronaut, because Hilda claims that she was the first woman to go to outer space, as Hilda's flying on a broom. Why would she bother claiming that? If witches can fly into space with an air bubble around them to survive it, and they've been on Earth for centuries, then there's no way Hilda is the first woman who went to space. Archie's TV Laugh Out, issue 93. Sabrina finishes decorating the Christmas tree, and Hilda reluctantly admits that it looks beautiful, and admits that mortals know how to enjoy Christmas. Who else would know how to enjoy Christmas? I thought only they celebrated it. And she tells Sabrina to bake them some cookies, rather than zap them up instantly. Well, she'll make eggnog. So this is Hilda being written like Zelda again. Della shows up and wastes an entire page waiting until now to bitch them out for enjoying Christmas. This is like the only story where she's done this at this point. She must have been too busy every other Christmas story. She tells them she'll remove their powers if she ever catches them celebrating Christmas again. I wish they were just allowed to use their magic for evil things on her. I'm guessing they know that they're not allowed to celebrate Christmas anyways, but just call it something else, like, I don't know, Festivus, because she'll see right through it. Sabrina somehow has the guts to warp a spirit of Christmas future to Della. He shows Della some witches having a party, and she says witches and warlocks are having a party, when that guy looks like a vampire instead. So I have to assume he's a warlock as well. He says that while they might not have powers anymore thanks to Della, they still have togetherness. Ambrose says that Della's destined to spend eternity without friends. And Della's immediately convinced by this when she was cold-hearted enough to order every witch ever to waste their magic doing evil before. And it's not like she'll change her mind on that. And I was under the assumption that only the witches on Earth, a very small minority, would care about Christmas, so there's no way that she would end up removing the magic of every witch. This story was about Sabrina summoning a spirit of Christmas future to convince Della that if she doesn't let witches celebrate Christmas, she'll spend forever without friends. And impressively, this works. Too bad it won't stick, so I have to assume this takes place in a different universe from later stories. Jughead 332. Hilda and Sabrina are at a restaurant, although the art's so rushed that I only see them sitting at a table. Hilda hates the prices, even though she could just zap up gold jewelry to sell off and make all the money she needs. Sabrina says witches can make their portions bigger, but somehow, Sabrina's magic doesn't increase the amount of ice cream, just how much they were built. The only way this could possibly make sense is if someone working at the restaurant is a witch who's cast a spell so this would happen, just in case other witches come here. Otherwise, there's no excuse. Archie and Me 143. Conveniently, Hilda admits that Sabrina's right that she and Zelda should wear a different style of hat, even though they're witches that are so set in their ways that they've been wearing these ones for centuries. The story has a surprise because instead of us seeing them wearing silly hats, we see Sabrina wearing a hard hat for some reason to protect her from hail or rain, instead of a rain hat. Betty and Me 138. Sabrina has to deal with a teen witch for once. She's dressed like she's in the Wild West, and what's even more rare is that she has a rival that's always trying to top her with status symbol possessions. She tries to top her with a broom with a saddle on it. I love that the saddle's tied to the broom to explain why it stays there. Sadly, there's a downer ending. Ingrid has a broom phone and isn't impressed by Sabrina. Archie 328. Hilda offers Sabrina a genie's lamp, which only makes sense because of the fact that witches can run out of magic. Sabrina says the lamp's all scratched up, and it's amusing to see Hilda wonder who used it, as we see that Salem used it to summon a ton of cat stuff. But the only way the genie would know what he wanted is if he cast a spell on himself so that he could read his mind. Life with Archie 241. Open Door Policy. In the Open Door Policy comedy page, someone with a suitcase shows up at Sabrina's house saying that since 3 ladies live in the house, they'll need the locks he's selling. Well, that's sexist. He didn't have to mention that they were ladies. Anyone would need locks. Sabrina says they won't ever need them, and we see monsters in the house. I guess he saw that. It would have been funnier if we saw his face, so we'd see his reaction better. The fact remains, the monsters usually won't be in the house, so someone could still break in. I never thought there weren't any locks on the house. Archie at Riverdale High. 96. Hilda tells Sabrina to come in and says she's throwing a party for friends. Sabrina wonders why she's being stared at, and Hilda casually says around monsters, "Maybe it's because you look so different." It's charming how she said that line.